You're turned to the side. You might want to turn your phone and turn back.
All right.
Oh, there you are. You're much better that way. At least while you're not upside down like this connection can make you. You're turned to the side. Oh, snap. You might want to turn your phone and turn back. Yeah, let me turn off.
All right.
Oh, there you are. You're much better that there.
Why am I hearing two separate?
Because I had to open up. I got the chat box open and everything else, and I probably did that incorrectly.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. How are you?
Better.
Oh, yeah. You were talking about blocks and blocks and blocks. Oh, snap. Here we go. Yeah. Believe me, I know a thing or two about blocks. Know a lot.
Yeah. The session we had last time was intense, so to speak. And I guess I needed that to kind of reconnect, you know?
Yeah. What did you discover about yourself when we were talking blocks? I don't know if, I think you can you see the chat box?
Hold up.
I probably should say hello. We are live, I believe. Hello.
Okay. Here it is.
Right. And we do have a few people that'll be joining us at some point, I would imagine.
Great.
Put it out there. So as they come, I will let them in the room. But we were talking about blocks, and we were talking about what those blocks actually do. What did you discover about your blocks? Actually, before we even do that, what made you decide that you wanted to do this? You said it was the number one. I know this is a number. Yeah.
I've noticed in myself and also in the community that there is a lot of blame going on. A lot of blame. And I've noticed myself doing it too, you know? Right. And I feel like it creates a block because blame is basically pointing at something outside of us.
Right.
Whether it be an event in the past, whether it be a person or a circumstance. And that's why I wanted to talk about blame, because I feel like, and even self-blame is a thing, you know?
Yeah.
So how can we stay in our power if we point at something outside of ourselves?
Well, the purpose of pointing outside of yourself is to pay attention to the disconnect inside of ourselves. Do you notice that? Do you notice that you need permission? Well, let's talk about what happens to you on the inside when blame occurs. How is it possible to stay connected to yourself when you're blaming someone?
It's not.
And will you ever reconnect back to yourself if you keep putting energy in that blame?
No, because blame comes with anger.
Right. And what is the anger trying to tell you?
The anger usually is a mask that we wear. And usually the anger comes from a thought process. But what's hidden under the anger? It's what we're trying to access.
For a lot of the time spent in blame, the feeling itself is not being connected to, right?
Right.
And as long as the hurt is not being accessed, the blame gets more fuel, but it still keeps you disconnected from yourself. Right? It's not until you actually will sit with that feeling can you change it, nor can you connect back to yourself. It's like what you need to access. Actually, we're going to have a set of twins join us. I just got a text. What ends up happening, one block for twin flames. Yeah. Okay. Come on in.
Can we post the link in the chat?
Actually, I will do that.
Okay, great.
So what happens is that feeling that's left in you, that disconnect, that actual block, that actual experience, the feeling is going abandoned, rejected, betrayed. You want the other person that you're putting the blame on to come and take that away from you. You won't give them access either.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you can keep telling yourself stuff from here, what happens here is that you get this complete block. Not going to let them through. This is what they did. I need to now get a whole bunch of people to validate that they hurt me and they help my blame disconnect me from myself.
So would you say that blame is sort of an armor that not only disconnects you from your feeling, but also abandons it? And then we tend to kind of blame the other person for the disconnect, when in fact, we're the one disconnecting from ourselves.
Absolutely. When you're young, when you're a child, there's a lot of things that end up hurting you. And when those things hurt you, you start to learn how to disconnect from yourself. It's not something you wanted to learn. It's just something you actually learn. And it could be just about anything. It could be something simple. But once you learn it, that disconnect continues to keep showing up in your life until you sit in those actual feelings. Thing is, from your very first hurt, where did you learn to sit with your hurt and accept it? Now you can see how disconnect can occur.
Mm-hmm.
So that you have this really powerful connection show up and you surrender to it for a split second. You access that hurt and all of a sudden it starts to heal, but it doesn't heal all the way because there's other hurts on the way, other hurts that you haven't paid attention to, other hurts that you haven't accessed. The connection that you have is a very beautiful one. And you believe that that connection is going to heal you, not realizing that the connection to yourself needs to heal on your own first. So it makes more sense to blame. You can blame your mom for not being there. You can blame your mom for never knowing or loving the real you. All of that blame ends up resulting in your own disconnect, not the other person. Sorry about that. They're yelling. The dogs know that I'm going alive, so they decided that they're going to chime in.
All the time. It's always like that.
I did look. Oh, we got somebody here. So what ended up happening, and by the way, hi, everybody. I do see their messages there. Blame also. So blame comes from others' expectations. That's a good one. But expectations themselves. Is it possible to have a connection and have expectations?
It defies the purpose of connection.
No, that pretty much summed it up, didn't it? I don't think you can. If you have expectations in a connection, you learn those expectations and you learn that they weren't going to be met. That's what creates the blame.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And in a way, that's also how we make others responsible for our disconnect. And how can we heal? And that's where I want to, that's what I want to touch also, because there's a fine line between taking responsibility and blaming yourself. So how can you navigate taking responsibility without blaming you?
Responsibility. It's a very interesting word. When are you ever responsible for the connection you have to yourself? Do you even know there is such a thing? Until a connection as bright and as powerful as this one comes along, you didn't realize how much you were not being responsible for when it came to your connection to yourself. Responsibility. When have you been responsible for your hurt? And when were you accessing the you on the inside of that hurt to be responsible for that? For her, for him. Depends on really what you learned about what being responsible for yourself means. You know, you could be in a strict household and your parents say, you're responsible for your behavior. You're responsible for how you act. You're responsible for how you react. You're responsible for all of these different things, only to find out that the responsibility that you really want to have isn't a responsibility you learned to have. When were you ever responsible for your hurt? See where the blame comes in? What's up? So we're talking about the number one block, and we just got into responsibility for your own hurt and connection. Stefania here was talking about blame. And, you know, when you're hurting really bad and you're in that story of how that person hurt you, you don't see the responsibility you've abandoned within yourself for your own hurt. So now you allow that hurt to bleed all over the place. And as long as you get support or you find some information that backs you up that says, yeah, they're gonna hurt you. Yeah, you're gonna go through hell. You can continue to blame. We've seen that a lot. And Stefania was pointing out, well, that's what ends up happening is we have that blame. Mm-hmm. That blame is there and the story is going and people are validating that story. And the more that you get validated outside of yourself, the further you get disconnected inside yourself.
True. True.
How do you heal it?
Yeah. Hold on one second.
Okay. Anything else to add there, Stefania?
You coming in, babe?
Well, that's kind of what, you know, how do you heal it? And that's when you need to learn how to take responsibility for your own healing. Because no one outside of you can do it for you. I mean, this connection will show up. It will mirror your disconnects. But then what?
Can you heal without connection?
No.
Can you heal without the truth?
No.
So what ends up happening is you find this space within you. And in that space, you still are continuing to tell yourself the same story, a different story, something that makes sense with what you've already been through, but never made sense with your ability to heal it.
Mm-hmm.
So an example would be you have a connection. You keep trying to turn it into a relationship. And I think somebody even pointed that out. You keep trying to turn the connection into a relationship because you don't want to face your own hurt. And that's why, that's why the connection gets stronger. I think that's kind of cool because the connection actually does increase. Oops, did they get booted? Okay, well, they'll be back. But anyway, what ends up happening is you keep trying to get yourself back into that space. And the more you try to get them into that space and make them responsible for that hurt. Did you guys get in the back door? So it's like you get into that space and you're there and you want them to accept you in a space where you're not accepting yourself. You ever carried hurt like that before? in this connection, that comes out big time, right?
Right. Because we try to make it into a relationship.
He's got to show up for me. She's got to do what she's got to do things for me that show me that I'm loved. And all of these come from those patterns that we learned as children. Because once we experienced what we called unconditional love, we never found true love. Because remember, true love was the story you wanted. Unconditional love is what you were experiencing at home, but it had conditions to it. So you want true love, but your blame won't let you. And blame can show up, not good enough, I'm not enough, nobody cares, nobody's listening, nobody understands me. I have to be who they want me to be. That is probably the biggest blame we have. I need to be what I know that they need, that I know that they think that they want from me. And they don't even see that you've double thought. You're thinking for them. Meanwhile, you're thinking very little of yourself. And it pisses everybody off in this connection. You know why? Because you're focusing so much on being something for them, you don't let them love you. You don't let them connect to you. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I know that in this connection, I've read that I need to be this and this and this and have self-love. Okay, let's make sure we're all on the same page. Can you have self-love without vulnerability?
Not really.
So we're blaming everybody for one thing that we can choose within ourselves. When you're in blame, this is the furthest point away from your vulnerability. You won't connect to yourself, nor will you connect to them.
True. Very true.
You guys have seen this as well? Anything to add or anything that you think when anybody who's going to watch this, they're going to stumble upon this and they're going to go, twin flames, number one block, blame.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they did this to me.
Yeah.
They hurt me.
Right.
But when did you heal your hurt to know that they hurt you? It's like you don't even see that you stumbled into the same hurt you've been carrying.
True. True.
Yeah, that actually goes back into some of we talk a lot about the locus of control.
Mike agrees.
Yeah, and if you hear our dogs barking, just
it's all good.
Don't mind them.
Yeah, they're part of the ambiance.
Having a dog party.
Our confirmation.
Right. But yeah, that is something that we talk about a lot, is having making sure that your locus of control is on the inside versus it being external.
Exactly.
Because when it's external, you're blaming everything and everybody for your problems. But when you actually bring it to the inside, for one, you actually reduce the amount of unnecessary energy that you put out.
Right.
You're actually able to give yourself that energy to go in and actually do the work that needs to be done.
True.
So that you can actually be balanced and have a healthy mindset, so that when you do go into a relationship, it is balanced. Because when it is unbalanced, then you have the whole run and chaser thing, because you're blaming somebody else or you're not taking your own responsibility. And when it comes to relationships, if people are not willing to really deal with their own inner demons, then it just ends up in heartbreak a lot of times.
Exactly. And just to piggyback on that, the reason why we speak about the locus of control so much is because you have to really know where your focus is, right? Because when your locus of control is external, this is when the blame game starts. Everything that happens to you is everyone else's fault. And then there is a lack of self-accountability. And if there is no self-accountability, you will never begin to actually heal.
Right.
That's where the starting point is, self-accountability. So when the blame is outside of you, right? Then it's Peter's fault, it's Tom's fault, it's this one's fault, it's that one's fault. The big setup with this is how we set ourselves up for failure, is that when you're blaming someone else, you're actually disempowering yourself. You literally have no power. You have given your power away to someone else. And that puts you in a very imbalanced state. It's like you're out of alignment, because now what you're having to do, because you're blaming someone else, right? You have to actually wait for them to maybe apologize, or you have to wait for them to fix the situation.
Mhm.
So you're in a waiting phase and you're out of alignment while you're waiting,
Mhm.
right? Whereas if you take self-accountability and know that you played a part in this, whatever took place, right? Now your locus of control is internal, and now you don't have to wait for someone to apologize. You don't have to
Mhm.
wait for someone to fix something, right? Now you can begin to do your own fixing.
Yeah.
You can begin to do your own healing through self-accountability by taking your locus of control and making sure that it's internal and not external.
Right.
Because that which is external to you controls you,
Mm.
right? So you have no type of self-control, because everything that's happening to you, you're blaming it externally.
Yeah. And you know, the beautiful thing about having the locus of control on the inside is that you no longer have the need to be wanted.
Right.
You no
right,
longer have the need to be fulfilled from somebody outside of you. So what that means is that if you're not getting the love that you want, right? You understand that when you have the locus of control on the inside, which means that you're allowing things from the inside to dictate how you act, then if somebody's not giving you the love that you feel like you deserve, you just give it to yourself. You're like, okay, well, you don't want to give it. I know I can give it to me. So if you don't want to give it, then, and then it also cuts out a lot of the bird boxing that happens in relationships, where you have so many people just being blind to the red flags that are going on.
right.
Because if you understand that you can provide everything that you need for yourself, and if somebody's not providing that for you, and then you notice that they are doing things that are like those red flags, like they're not so emotional, they're not as so loving as you would want them to be, or anything of that nature, any one of those red flags that just give you an indication to get out of a relationship.
Mhm.
Now you can actually see these red flags, like, hold up, this person needs some more work done. I'm gonna let you sit over here. You go sit in the corner for a little bit, get yourself together, and when you're ready, you can come back and we can vibe.
Right. Just get it together first,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely. One of the biggest things I think that we've been able to really deep dive into is that when blame is actually present, your ability to receive love is at its fullest capacity to reject,
Yes.
because it's really hard to receive love
Mhm.
when deserve, control, or blame are on the inside of you dictating your reality.
Very true. Very true. And this can come from unforgiveness, right? Because when you're blaming someone, there is a level of unforgiveness that you're holding on to, right? And holding on to unforgiveness, I always say, is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer the consequence of that, right? You're only hurting yourself by holding on to that unforgiveness, that grief, and that internalization of that, holding on to that unforgiveness, it actually blocks the heart chakra region, that energy pool, which is why you don't have the capacity to receive love, because it's actually blocked.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And also, I feel like the energy of blame is your need to be right. It's like, I need to be right about the situation. So then you're stepping into ego, you're stepping into separation, and you can no longer connect not only to yourself, but to the other person, because you have a position to defend, to protect, and you're like in attack mode. And that's not the real you, because the real you inside, the inner child, the one who feels everything, Lee, that inner child wants to connect, wants to be held, wants to be loved. You know, it wants to forgive. It wants to just be.
Right. And
It
that's
wants, you know, it wants to be vulnerable.
the connection point there, is that the parent or parents of that inner child is everything you feel. That's what's become the parent to that child, not the external parents you think you have.
Right.
So what you've done is you've broken it down, and here from everything that went unfelt or not connected to in you and your feelings. That's what's parenting that inner child now.
Yeah.
We're not connecting that all the way through, but we should be. And that's where a lot of the blame comes in, from that feeling that gets accessed from the outside. A trigger is nothing more than a loaded gun you already carry.
Okay. All right now.
You can't get away from that.
That's tweetable right there.
Right.
And
That is
you don't-
tweetable.
You've never taken apart your gun, so you don't know that you're
Mm.
carrying it.
Got
You don't
bullets
know
in
that
it.
it's loaded. You didn't know that somebody could just, especially somebody in a connection, when they're not
Yeah.
choosing you or when they're not treating you the way you deserve. Now, deserve is its own bullet,
Exactly.
Mhm.
and it's self-inflicting in a lot of ways.
It is. It is. And when someone doesn't choose you, the perception of choice, right? When
Yeah.
you're saying, oh, let's say my twin flame chose someone else, they didn't choose me.
Mm.
It's really you looking within to see if did you choose you?
Mm.
Have you chosen you? Right? Because and then also that could lead to like you talk about the trigger. It could be from childhood. That's a symptom of neglect in childhood or in some portion of your life. There is
Yes.
it's playing out right now. It's a symptom of neglect that is playing out. So if you're feeling that someone didn't choose you, you have to ask yourself, why didn't I choose me? And you have to go back inward and see where that came from. What is that rooted in? Is it my childhood when my dad chose the child that was the star kid and he played all the sports and got all the attention and they were constantly choosing that one over me? Is that where that started from? Because those things of someone else's choosing, that whole choose perception, it's rooted in, most of the time it's rooted in childhood or early experiences.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, and you will see, especially in this connection, it's like when you're in front of your twin and you get this opportunity to take the mask off, to speak your truth, to tell them how you feel, but you don't do it, and then they choose someone else, and then you're like, why did they choose someone else?
Mm.
And you get angry, but the anger stems from all these built up feelings that you did not express or communicated to this person.
Mm. So then they didn't really get to know the real you. So therefore they're not choosing you because
But ultimately, isn't
never showed
that-
up to be chosen.
but isn't
Exactly.
that is the biggest blame we're carrying?
Right.
Yeah.
Is that we tell ourselves that no one has ever been allowed to love the real us,
Right.
nor will they ever. So we have to come up with all the reasons to blame to make sense of that.
Right. Right.
Because down to your core and everything that you're feeling, it's being accessed, but you're still in there telling yourself that same story. Well, if my mom and my dad didn't choose me or get to love the real me, or I had to be in line with what they wanted, I have to be in line with what this person wants. And you don't even know what that is.
Mm.
So it's a scary thing to open up and be vulnerable and say, who do you want me to be for you?
Mm.
When you've never even done that for yourself. And this is where it's like the double-edged sword. You can't win because you're trying to be something for them that you've never allowed yourself to be for you.
Right.
And this happens to
Choose
us.
you.
Yeah, it happens to you in childhood. It happens to you. And this is the blame game at its very beginning.
Mm.
Mhm.
You know, just real quick, because somebody asked, where's Sherry? Sherry is doing IV for the first time at home. Hospice came in this morning and hooked her up so she could get hydrated.
Mm.
So she was going to be able to make it, but she couldn't. So she's kind of laid out at the moment, but my brother's sitting with her. So if she gets up and come in here, she'll wheel that little thing in here and she'll come and talk. But we were hoping she'd be able to, but it's going to be a 4-hour deal for her to actually sit with that. So
We're sending her lots of love, lots and lots of unconditional love, and light to get through whatever she's going through, to assist her in her healing process. It will be a speedy recovery, sending all that love through these technical devices. It'll come through its frequency. It'll reach.
yeah, absolutely. Good to see you, Elmo.
Hello, guys.
And Tanya, I don't think we've seen the rest of you now. I do see a question that came in here. Listening and learning and going through a lot with my twin karmic cycle, betrayals, secret sneaky cycle, deceptive, oh Lord, his dealing with his karmic, but I'm on a healing journey. The thing about healing, how can you heal something inside that when you access it, you abandon it?
You can't.
Yeah, you really struggle because your thought patterns have pretty much clearly been designed to keep you away from what you feel. Remember, we weren't taught to feel, we were taught to think. So what ends up happening is you turn that thinking against your feeling. You don't even see the betrayal. You can't even see it because you haven't been able to access truth. You access honesty, which omits a lot of things, because you could have your story of, I grew up, I didn't get, nobody knew, nobody asked me, nobody cared. And then you get into that little line and you're not paying attention to what it felt like. You access it, but you still abandon it. Connection comes along, my savior. And then you go in there and share with them with no judgment, and it starts to heal. But then you get to tell yourself, oh, well, now that they know this, see, you knew this happened to me. There comes the blame. And you're treating me the same way they treat you. And there comes the blame. And then now you've got this whole big story. And guess who's coming? Oh, not okay. It's going to come into this space where you actually experience more blame. And the more blame, the more suffering. Which?
The vicious cycle.
All in your thing. Which one do you need? Okay, carry on, guys. Let me just check something.
Yeah.
Can you try your way into connection? Because I have this block of trying and relaxing, but both take me to imbalance in a way.
That's interesting. So you said that you're trying. Is that what you said?
Yes, I am balancing between trying and not trying, but the not trying is trying to not try, if you're catching.
Okay. Try, just do it.
Yeah.
You know, like take for instance, I have this cup, this can of cashews, right? If I were to tell you that I'm trying to hold this can of cashew, you're gonna look at me like she's crazy. What do you mean she's trying to hold it, right? So it's a can of cashews. So if I have it sitting here and I'm telling you, well, I'm trying to hold this can, but you know, I'm trying. And you're gonna be like, just hold the can. What do you mean?
Simple.
You're trying? Just hold the can. Right? So in your case, seems like you just need a little bit of self-confidence, and that takes time to build up that confidence, that passion, right? Yeah. Just work on your passion, because the passion is your fuel. The passion is like the fuel in the car to get it to go where it wants to go. Even though it has a wheel and a steering and everything, you're gonna need the passion, the fuel to actually take off. Yeah. So just work on your self-confidence. Don't be hard on yourself. You know, it's something that takes time to develop and grow. You know, once you've built up enough passion and enough fuel, then go and grab your can of cashews.
Yeah.
I love the analogy. I love it.
Trying sounds a bit like it's a resistance, I find.
Yeah.
You want to
forcing a certain way of doing things.
Yeah.
You're not allowing
the fluidity.
Yeah.
How do we all feel about trying? Do you feel that you accept the word trying and what it represents? Do you find that you completely don't like the word trying at all? Have you noticed that trying is probably one of the things that we put in place to abandon ourselves?
Yeah, 100%. Because that's something that really came to light early on in our relationship. Because for me personally, that was some things that I wanted to do. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna try this and try that and things of that nature. But when I really took an opportunity to step back and look at what I was attempting to do, it it made me understand that trying was a glorified excuse. It was a real pretty excuse for me to say, well, I'm doing my best, you know, it's just like, but if we go from trying to planning, which means planning means that we have to understand, okay, where is my point B? I'm at point A and I want to get to point B. What steps, or do I levitate to B? Or what steps do I take to get to B?
There you go.
And the problem was for me was that I didn't take the time to sit down and be still and think, okay, what do I need to do to get from point A to point B? Okay. Because when you're trying to get to point B, that just means that you're just
kind of grasping at straws.
you just walking around trying to feel like, okay, no, that ain't it. Okay, I'm trying real hard, but
You can try without feeling.
Right.
But you can feel without trying.
Right.
And the thing is that the point B is not, it's out of reach because it's not in the present. So it's like you set this goal or this, you know, you want to reach a point that you can access now.
Yep.
And when you said, you know, just sitting still, well, what if that's where you get to point B? You know?
That's it.
Yeah, that's even the deep level right there.
That's exactly why Sherry came up with standstill.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly what you just said. Because you have all of those. If trying is nothing more than a broken thought process, you could be trying for a long time, but you really are making sure that you're going to stand outside of what's going to heal you. But if you just sit still and what you're actually feeling, the healing will come on itself.
Right.
It's hard to sit with your own hurt. Right? It is really hard to share that hurt with people you're connected to. And especially the one, right? Because you have a perception of how they're going to accept you or don't accept you. I remember I said to Sherry, said, I'm doing everything I can to try to be the person I think you want me to be. She says, wouldn't I need to be included in that conversation? so you know,
that's the key point. A lot of people are not having those conversations.
No, they're not.
Right.
I'm being exactly who they need me to be, and I know that's what they think. Oh, and when they told you this is how they think, how did you respond? And it's really interesting because it's like this light bulb never really turns on. That what they needed to have was that connection, and they didn't have it. You're in your mind thinking you're trying to be who they want you to be, and they weren't included in that. Don't worry, you're connected to no one, not even yourself. And you can't help them. You got to let them find their way out. You can say it to them, and all it does is trigger them because what they learned growing up is being folded on, literally. You know, your parents are going to say, well, and, you know, I want you to get good grades in this, and they'll beat you down. You know, I want you to be somebody. I want you to be able to take care of yourself. I want you. Some have even said, I want you to be self-reliant. I don't want you to depend on anybody. What we hear is, I don't want you to be connected to anyone. And that's what we do. We don't realize that we're doing it because that's part of the human condition. Everybody's doing it.
We even glorify it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I can take care of myself. I'm loving just me.
Right.
Love has never been exclusive. Love is not exclusive. When you say I'm loving myself and I don't need anybody, you don't even hear what that feels like. Because it's not translating well. And you can see that the body doesn't like any of it.
Right. Because true love, like love in itself, I don't even really like that term true love, because love in itself, it's love. It's no true or fake, it's just love. But love is a frequency, right? And so when you're really and truly on that frequency of love, that's kind of not what it looks like. You know, I don't need nobody. Like, you know, that's not what that's not what that frequency feels like.
No.
You're on the frequency of love, truly from the heart space. It ricochets out, because, you know, as within, so without. So if you're vibrating on the frequency of love, your surroundings will reflect that which is within.
The big misconception would be that you don't need your vulnerability to have love.
Oh, that's not true. Yeah.
That
you
is
need to-
that is the main ingredient. But I believe
Yeah.
the misconception of vulnerability is
Yeah.
that you hurt all the time, and that's not vulnerability.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is what you came into this world with, which had wonderment, which had amazement, which had presence.
Mhm.
And you are open to feeling and learning what
Open.
that was, instead of
Right.
replaying a story of recycled hurt that you keep
Right.
carrying, and it's not the same experience.
Right.
Mhm.
You're completely present. And
Mhm.
when you're completely present, that is the ultimate forgiveness.
Mm.
You don't have to carry too much past or too much future.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how you
Yeah.
know you've forgiven. That's how you know you have forgiven, when you don't carry too much, you don't carry any past, and you don't carry any future.
Right. The baggage.
Yeah.
You're
You know what the
vulnerable.
beautiful
You
thing
can-
is? The beautiful thing, this is something that it hit me last year with Leisha, which is that we hit a whole nother level of love for one another,
Mm,
because we came to the conclusion, and it was funny because it was there, but it didn't make itself apparent. But one of the things that was really realized is that us being vulnerable for one another
mhm.
actually expanded the love.
Mm.
Like, it took it to a whole nother place from us just being lovers and in a relationship
Mhm.
to more of, gosh, I don't even know the words to put on it. This is the level to where a lot of people are looking for,
Mhm.
because you have what mainstream media says what love is. They tell you it's supposed to be like this Cinderella story, or Pretty Woman, and like Pretty Woman or something of that nature. But
Mhm.
when you're able to be really vulnerable with somebody to the point to where they see you in the naked truth,
Yeah.
like your naked truth, like they don't care about the clothes that you wear, no jewelry, anything. You are just completely there naked.
Mhm.
And being naked is one of the most vulnerable things that most of human being can do, because not everybody is willing to be naked in front of somebody. Okay. But when we realize that we can really be vulnerable with one another, that's a whole nother level of trust that came
Trust. Yeah.
in. And that allowed for even more love to be, because and it's more of the unconditional love, because it's like, I don't have to hide who I truly am.
Mm.
Mhm.
But first, before even coming to that point of being able to be vulnerable, you have to first be vulnerable with yourself.
Yes.
Because when you can see yourself sitting there naked, you see the
Mhm.
naked truth of who you are, then you're like, okay, this okay, even though it may be a little messy, and it looks good and everything of that nature, but hey, I accept it and I love it. And so when you really truly love yourself for the naked truth for who you are, and then somebody else accepts you for who you truly are,
Mhm.
it's a beautiful thing. And it takes a love to a whole nother level. But we have to be able to go through that work to see us in our naked truth,
Mhm.
all of the cuts and the wounds that we have, all of the leaky sides and things of that nature. Like, we have to be able to see all of that
Mhm.
and accept all of that,
Mhm.
and then
Lay it on the table.
That's exactly what bubble love for us was vulnerability. And I believe that's what everybody's experiencing.
Mhm.
They're all experiencing this vulnerability, but they're not seeing that it's never been maintained within yourself.
Mm.
So then when you start reverting back to old patterns, old behaviors, and old blames,
Yeah.
right? You end up doing that. We have a question here. It says, I have a question, how to trust the knowing when you experience the connection, how to overcome doubt. You have to realize that you react to doubt
Mm.
before you're going to be able to heal it, right? If you're reacting to doubts that you have, you're not accessing what you're really feeling.
Mm.
You're letting yourself believe in what you think.
Mm.
This connection is all about everything you feel.
Mm.
Has nothing to do with what you think. And now your thinking is going to get involved, and it's going to show you how you created relationships.
Mm.
Not
Yeah.
connections, right? It's gonna
And
be that.
when you spoke about you being naked in front of each other, and
Mhm.
that's when you basically heal the story the thought process that's telling you that you shouldn't be vulnerable. And when you see that, oh my gosh, okay, like I can not only love myself but also be loved for who I am, that's when the healing process really starts. So the question here is saying, how do you trust the knowing? How to overcome doubt? Well, eventually you stop operating from the mind and the fear, and you step into your truth, and it becomes just, I guess, natural, a practice.
What is so beautiful about what you just said, Stefania, is you said when you step out of your mind and step into your truth. See, people are still trying to make this a mind connection, and connection to the mind is what's disconnected. So you said it right on point. That feeling when you did this and said, then you're in your truth. Well, see, my mind is saying, oh, they're not going to accept what's behind here because I haven't. Right? It's easier to point at somebody who doesn't accept you, but it's harder to point at yourself and say you don't accept you. Right? It's real hard. It's like you look in that mirror, you're like, I kind of love you today, but I don't. Right? Yeah, really, really. I mean, I look at what I'm going through with her, right? And I mean, I can hear all kinds of judgments. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you pick that up? Why didn't you make sure that she had this? Why didn't you do? Yeah, I can hear it. My reaction, I don't have anymore because it took so many times for that to keep happening, for me to realize that I was doing all of that to my vulnerability and she wasn't able to be connected to me. Your union is vulnerability, not with another person, but with yourself. When you have that union with yourself, that is your vulnerability. But if you are still not in the know that your vulnerability has nothing to do with what you think, and you're still looking for an identity of who you're supposed to be with this person or who you're supposed to be for yourself, then you're missing it. You don't need to know who you are. That's the whole point of connection. You'll never expand you'll never expand yourself trying to look for who you think you are because your thinking will be limited. Right?
That ties into
your thinking is going to limit it. Your thinking will always limit you, but your feelings won't.
Oh my gosh. Leo, wow, that is just so on point. Because look.
Hey, when you are faced with all of the things that we have been thrown at us to disconnect us, we started realizing some very deep, very powerful lessons in connection. I mean, if you know you are in a connection, and you don't have to look for a true connection, you just have to look for the true connection in you. And don't even realize that what you've done is you've made this into a mind construct, a relationship that really doesn't help you expand. We lost our dreams not because of who we are to each other. We lost our dreams because we didn't even know what they were yet, because we were still trying to define ourselves as to who we thought we were as twin flames. We stopped that. You really do graduate from that, and you realize, you know what? Everybody wants a connection and everybody wants to be vulnerable, but nobody's talking about it. Because it's not a talk. I don't believe that's a very open way to communicate it yet, but people are walking past people and feeling something. That's huge. And I don't know if it was the pandemic that did it, or it was just that
it's always been here.
I think we needed to break down on humanity so we could connect to one another, because that's why we're here.
Yeah.
And that ties into my can I throw my question in? So that this whole conversation ties into, how do you open to the whole world, to everybody, not just relationship contracted connection, one-to-one? Because I have this thing where I can seemingly open to one person one-on-one, but then when it's the whole world, I start closing myself,
start retreating. Well, that goes okay. When you start looking at your true identity of who you are, when you start breaking yourself down, and actually not even breaking yourself down, but really setting yourself free. Because Lee, you said a point that was really key, is that at a certain point, you even don't identify as a twin flame because you understand that you are more than just a twin flame. Even when you start looking into the whole like definition of a twin flame, you're talking about a soul that was split off. And where did it split off from? Something outside of this realm. So if I'm something outside of this realm, so okay, where did that come from? And so when you start to go back through the different layers of who we are, for example, if you were to look at your skin, you see that your skin has all these different lines and things of that nature. But if you go a little bit deeper into that, then you start to see the tissue. Then you go a little bit deeper into that, you start to see the bone. But even when you go inside of the bone, and the more you go into it, it starts to break down into atoms, things of that nature. Then you start breaking it down to protons and neutrons. I'm like, hold up, okay. So I'm like all of that. And then when you start going past that, you get to the point of quartz. And then after that, there's nothing that you can really put your mind on, but you know that there's something that's behind those quartz that's sending the energy out. So when you start to see that how this cup, even though it's made out of plastic, it originated from somewhere. And when you go back to the base of that, when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, it's still protons and neutrons. And when you get down to the protons and neutrons, you understand that it's a quartz. And there's also an energy that's behind this that is powering this whole form. So when you start looking into that, you realize that, hold up, I'm her, I'm this cup, I'm this other person. And so when you realize that you can really open up to yourself, it makes it easier to open up to everybody else.
Right.
Mm.
Because
You're
on a
not
molecular
just an
level, we're
individual.
all one. Like it's the same. So but it starts with self. You got to open up with yourself first, fully, not partially, but fully open up to self and understanding that you're a part of everything and everything is a part of you. And it's okay. You just give yourself the permission. Just allow yourself.
Just don't react. Don't react to your mind making it small.
Right.
And that's a common theme, right? We're told to believe that we're an individual having an experience instead of us being the experience to an individual. And literally, you're all of it. So when you think you have to face the whole world, what you're saying is I don't face my world. Because you are the world. It's almost like you're trying to connect to your disconnect, not realizing that there's a very powerful connection in just knowing that you are the world.
There you go.
Don't limit your space. And I believe, that has a lot to do with why time and space are the issue. We believe in such a thing instead of believing in connection to each other. And all that did was create our disconnect. Have you ever tried to have a thought without time? It's impossible, right? So when you think, oh, all of these people here and they're going to see me or they're going to experience me, you're already projecting a you that you've already disconnected from. And you're not going to be present for what the actual feeling will give. You can do that, Elma. Don't narrow it down to one. Don't narrow it down at all. You know what I mean? You're more than that. We all are.
Absolutely.
I love the way that if you really look at what you have and when you unite, you will find that there's more to you, just like any ocean. And it breaks down to that liquid form that you touch many of lives without even knowing how you're doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a certain abyss.
Right. Oh, you're definitely an ocean. You just have forgotten, and that's not your fault because we're all walking around thinking we're all puddles, and we're not puddles at all. we just are.
We're a little deeper than that, yeah.
Stefania, you said you asked some questions there? Did we get any questions that we could answer?
Not any questions as of now, but let us know in the chat if you want us to answer anything.
And if you want to join, I can
also
put the link there if they want to join.
Yes. So the ocean, I like that analogy, the vulnerability of the water, how you can do anything to the water, but it will still remain water.
Yep. You can put oil in water. You can put gas in water. You can connect water to water, even if the waters are two different waters. But if you really look at all of the liquids that we have on the planet, there's not any of them that don't stay together, even if they're put together. And they don't have an issue being connected to one another. So why do we? So it's almost like, you know, you go down to where the Atlantic and the Pacific meet, and it's the roughest waters on the planet, but supposedly it creates the most life. So what are we learning? I mean, we're supposed to be learning connection, and we're not even paying attention to what's actually connected to us. You're made up of water. We're on a water planet. Water's God here. Just, you have to, oh, I'm not connected to any of that. I'm not liquid. Yes, you are. You're just shaped in the way that you're shaped.
Yeah.
And you haven't expanded the way an ocean would.
Yes.
So don't try to be who you think you are. Be who you actually are. Connection doesn't require blame. Connection doesn't require disconnection. You know what connection experiences and disconnect? Connection. you can't even fight that. It doesn't know what's disconnected because we're all connected. We're just in here not paying attention to it.
Yeah. And if we can get outside of our minds
or no longer react to it.
Right.
And the locus of control on the inside, so we can't even. But yeah, that is the liberating part. And you know, this whole you know, for anybody who is on a twin flame journey, they are on an accelerated course of ascension. I mean, period, because you're going through all of the emotions, all of the waves, you're going back into your childhood, you're doing all of this within a matter of sometimes weeks. Some people break down because they're just not ready for what comes with the twin flame union. But if you're going through a twin flame journey, you are strong enough to endure it.
What would you guys say has been for me and Cherry, I know for me, what the hardest thing was to accept about this connection to her. The hardest thing for me to accept was how I felt. I didn't see it. You know what I mean? You're not paying attention to it, but when you had those feelings and you're like, nah, right? Nah, I've been here this whole time. I'm not supposed to feel anything. Why am I feeling something now? And then, wait a minute. What do you mean you feel me? Wait, no, that's the whole concept, is that my mind was not accepting. And then it dawned on me, when has my mind ever accepted anything I felt? And I didn't realize how much that was a disconnect. But what have you guys found?
Well, you know what? That is a question that has not been asked.
We've never.
All right, well,
maybe we could answer it individually. I don't know if it's going to be the same.
That's why I already know. I already know if I would have pulled her into that.
I know what was difficult for me was being able to kind of know what he's thinking, if that makes sense. Like
does your thinking accept his thinking?
Not all the time.
I'll be out there sometimes.
Yeah, he's like way out there, and I have to wheel him back in, like, you know. But just knowing what he's thinking, that to me was like, you know, sometimes it's like, you know, like,
right.
So to me, that was one of the difficult things, is just really feeling him, like knowing what he's feeling, how he's feeling, when he's feeling it, and
where.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, that was overwhelming. That level of connection was overwhelming for me. It's more of me just being literally connected to him and knowing all of his feelings and thoughts and things like that. It took some time for me to get used to it, but it also helped me to be able to allow him to open up to me.
Mhm.
right? So it came with the two-edged sword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what gave him the ability to say that he trusts me with his emotions. Because even before he would come and tell me stuff, I would know, and I would like go to him and just let him know, hey, it's a safe space, it's okay, you know.
Yeah.
And little by little, he's opened up more and more and more, and now he's just really vulnerable because
Yeah.
I created that space of vulnerability.
Mhm.
But that for me, that was kind of hard for me.
Yeah. And for me, it's actually something a little bit different. Because a relationship and things of that nature was, of course, this connection was something I've always dreamed about as a teenager, to be honest. But the thing that was difficult for me to accept was the mission.
Yeah.
Because early on, before we even knew what twin flames were, before we knew what twin flames were, Leisha had came up with the idea of doing a YouTube channel to let people know about the love that we have, and they should have a love like this. And I'm like, I'm not for that. Just really putting myself out there, because I'm the type of individual, like, I would be the one running the camera. I'm not gonna be in front of the camera. So accepting that mission to open the world up to new possibilities,
Right.
to change the perception that a lot of people have when it comes to love. Because it was something early on that I read, and I can't remember if it was a blog or whatever, but it says that twin flames are here to break down the old paradigms and build things up to let people know what love really looks like, what a relationship really looks like. What does it mean to actually be a partner to somebody else? And so that was a big task for me to accept, to be someone, to be in the forefront of that, to be an example. Like, that was something that was hard for me to accept. But once I got into it, because especially if you go back and look at like our first video, like, I was real shy, real timid. I probably didn't even talk that much. But now I'm like full blown, like, let's go.
Right. Yeah.
For me, it is accepting how much I actually feel and how much the other actually feels, and communicating in that feeling. Like, we both know that we know, and we both feel that we feel, but somehow we don't speak it, and that leads to things hidden and not complete openness and vulnerability. So how would one open the communication channels?
How do you accept communicating from your feelings?
It's hard.
Is that rejection? And is that from the real you?
Yes and no.
Did you notice that you didn't say yes and leave it just at yes? So there's a you on the inside of there that you listen to, but you don't. You should let that part of you take over. You can't expand what you won't let yourself have.
Right. Integration.
Mhm.
Yeah. Gotta integrate.
How
Mm,
about you,
I would-
Stefania?
yeah, for me, the hardest thing to accept has definitely been me in the connection.
Okay.
Because I wasn't even aware of how I wasn't accepting and loving me. The connection to him has been very easy to accept. It's whatever it brings up, and how I had to basically, have a look at the disconnect in me, and I feel like, yeah, accepting me has been the most challenging.
So let me make sure I ask this question correctly. Did you teach him how to have a hard time accepting you?
Yeah.
And how have you found that you taught him to do that through the love you were trying to give him?
You're gonna have to repeat that.
You found out the way that you taught him how to do that is through all the love you were giving him, you were having a hard time accepting you. So what he kept feeling from that was that you weren't accepting yourself, and then he would have to feel all the love that you were trying to give him and probably never feel good enough to love you because you wouldn't change your mind and accept yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, on an energetic level.
So when you would try to connect, the stronger you would try to connect, the more he would feel your non-acceptance of yourself. And a lot of people run into this and they go, no, they told me they weren't connected to me. And then I'm like, well, let's talk about you for a minute. And they don't want to do that.
Right.
Because I don't want to tell you that I can tell you that I accept myself sometimes. But they don't see that what I catch on to is when they said sometimes, they meant most of the time they're not loving themselves or accepting themselves at all. Because they're not even receiving what I'm trying to connect them to. And as long as you're in defense of that, you're in the blame still, right? You want to blame what you haven't really received. But when did you let yourself receive?
And now you just reminded me of how I have blamed my twin for not accepting me. I feel like he's not I think he's not accepting me, you know?
How did you teach him? How did you teach him to accept you?
That's the thing. I haven't.
Right. So in connection, is it possible to teach the one you're connected to how to accept you when you're not?
No, because they can't.
You would actually get mad. You would blame them. If they're trying to love a part of you that you don't love, you probably would find yourself in separation quite a bit.
Yeah, you wouldn't even believe
You know what I mean?
them.
You know what I mean? You'll probably find that what you
clip out this part right here.
Wait a minute.
We cannot connect you to what I'm already going to separate from you from because I'm separated inside myself.
Right. This is true. And that reminded me, Stefana, of when we first started our union. That's what really sent me down the road to more shadow work, because I thought I did some stuff. But when I met him, oh my God, I sat down with my higher self for about 3 hours going through my childhood, because one day I realized that I felt like he was ignoring me. You know, it was just always this thing where you're ignoring me, you know, and he'd be like, I'm not ignoring you. And so when we really started diving deeper into it, it turned out that I was ignoring myself. And when I really realized that, wow, it was like a slap in the face. Like I have to take some time to swallow that truth, because I was literally ignoring myself and projecting it on him.
This is how we become the unseen runner. We think we're chasing something that we've never ran after. You never find that if you're chasing someone, you actually are the runner.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yes.
It's hard.
Preach it.
Really, really hard to see, because you're convinced that you need to chase them the same way you've chased love your whole life. You just didn't realize that you forced them into it. And the big thing about if you're chasing somebody, if somebody's telling you, well, they're running, you just need to ask them directly, how do you receive love again? You're going to find out real quick how quickly they run.
And that's blame again.
I've received
Runner.
love, and they're stuck. They don't have shit to say. And this is probably one of the biggest things I think all of the twins that are in union could bring. It doesn't need to cost anything. It doesn't need to be a whole shit ton of work. It just needs to be the truth, right? The truth is this: on a level playing field, how do you receive love? Because in this connection, it is one of the trickiest things that you experience. And the other person you're connected to is going to show you how you receive love. They really are. Let me try to love this person I'm connected to while not being connected and loving myself.
Right.
Is the biggest challenge and the biggest cause of runner chaser is what's causing it. You never learn to receive love and connection.
Mhm.
So
You
you
were
think
taught-
they're ignoring
Taught to
you?
give.
Yeah.
When did you receive love? Think about when's the last time you received love and you felt it. How old were you?
Mm.
And that's what our mission, that's what they handed us. Here, you guys handle this. And we went, what else? But then you look at everything we've been through. And that honestly was one of the things that came out of our deepest pain, became our greatest strength.
Mm.
And we found it in the vulnerability. Because you can't have connection without vulnerability.
You can't.
You know what,
cannot.
Lee? It just took me down. Like, it just took me back in time, just that moment.
Ah.
Because I just drew a connection to some things, right?
Mm.
When I was in high school, I remember there was a point in time where I was just like real happy with myself. It just seemed like everything was just magical. Whatever I thought about, it came up. Like, I had wanted to get a new cell phone, and I'm probably about to tell my age. Like, I got one of the Nokias from PowerTel.
Boy.
And, I had the snake playing it while I was in class and stuff. But, during that time, like, I was really loving and enjoying myself. And that was one of the most magical times. And the thing is that I connected with her. When I finally got to the point of really loving myself and enjoying myself without having anybody else around, everything just seemed magical.
Mhm.
Because I was able to really accept myself for who I was and just that.
Same here.
We're all asked this one question that we don't even see disconnects us. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Mm.
Do you know why that disconnects us from ourselves? Because it means you're nothing right now.
Mm.
And we don't see that. And that's why people, when we ask them, well, when have you ever allowed this? And, who is responsible for all of your hurt? No one. And what has that ever given you? Nothing. You're told we're not going to be nothing until we get older. What do you think that does to your love and your ability to receive it?
Puts it into the future.
Actually, far worse than that. Tells you it's always going to be out of reach and you'll never have it. And you'll always be aspiring to try to reach something. And even when you become something, did you learn how to receive love along the way?
Mm.
So the one thing you're going to be rejecting for a majority of your life will be the one thing that you tell yourself you're in healing for.
Mm.
Healing is an ongoing experience, but healing also is on purpose.
Mhm.
When you're healing is when you keep going deeper and deeper inside your hurt.
Yeah.
Most people believe that that's why Sherry's like, you can't be healed. There is no such thing. That's just hurt masking itself as healing.
Mm.
Right? So if you sit inside of your actual hurt and you're healing, you then find your pain and you don't leave it. You actually figure out why you came here is the same reason why you're supposed to be here. Pain brought you into this world, brought you into the newness. Are you trying to convince yourself that not going into your pain won't bring newness?
Mm.
Are you trying to convince yourself that going into your pain isn't going to birth you? That's how you came into this world, and the nature of it is the nature of what you're supposed to keep experiencing. That is connection.
Mm.
You can't, Sherry and I couldn't love each other because we hated our pain. We were running from it. When you're running after somebody, you're running away from your own pain.
Yeah.
You haven't faced it. All causes of addiction, all causes of disconnect, all causes of blame is because of a refusal to go into your own pain.
Yes.
So you can't have union until you sit in your pain. You won't accept it because your mind has been trained not to make you accept something that's going to heal you.
Mhm.
But I tell you what, if you break your leg, I bet you go to the hospital and take care of that and put it in a cast and do it. But you won't do that for your emotional pain.
Mm.
You won't do it. You won't put your emotional pain in a cast and sit with it and allow, because the emotion is being created from a story.
Mhm.
You are not a story. You're more than that.
Way more.
We have a question
Yes.
from Hope, Love, and Sunshine that says, why is everyone saying that union is difficult and more problems come up? What if you have done a good amount or a lot of healing already? Is it still that challenging to be in a relationship with your twin?
How do you accept being in your vulnerability all the time with no questions? Regardless where you are, do you have a need to protect or keep yourself safe? If you do, you're making yourself safe and protecting your own hurt. Where's the vulnerability in that? That's my answer. Did anybody else have I've struggled with this one myself.
Yeah, this is one that we get this question a lot, to be quite honest. And one of the things that that is forgotten a lot is having compassion for the other person. And in saying that, we have to understand that even though we've done our healing and we know how difficult that was to go through it, and in order to get to a point to where we can be in union, I'm just speaking in a general sense, that that once we get to a point that we've actually done our healing and we can actually be in a healthy relationship, then we look for another healthy individual. But the compassion comes in with understanding that, has this other person done their healing? Like, that is one of the reasons why union is so difficult, because not everybody is willing to sit in their pain. Because until they're able to sit in that pain, then once again, you're going to experience that run and chase the face, because they are running from their pain, but they want you to accept their pain, but they're running from it.
Mm-hmm.
So in some sense, when it comes to union, I mean, we have to think about this on a little bit of a 3D level. Because if somebody, for example, if we're playing a basketball game, in order for a basketball game to happen, you have to have an opposing side. You have to have at least two other people playing in the game of basketball. So if you're just sitting there by yourself and you got one ball, it's not that enjoyable. But unless you got somebody else who is willing to join into the game with you, then it becomes interesting.
Right.
And it's like we just want to force people to get into the game and play, and they don't want to play, or they're not ready to play. They haven't even gained the skills in order to be a masterful player.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I want to say this too, kind of like off of what he just said, which I agree with, but also sometimes what we can do with our own experiences in life, sometimes we do a lot of externalizing. Like we adapt in the subconscious a lot of other people's experiences. And then, those experiences we can live through when we don't necessarily have to, right? So just because a few people, quite a few people you said, you're noticing that they're having very difficult relationships, right? Mm-hmm. That might not be the case for you. It might not necessarily be your life path or your experience. But what happens is when you take that truth on for yourself, when you buy that truth, and let's say you do get into a relationship, maybe again, if you might not have such a difficult time. Not saying that we don't all have healing to do and continue to heal, because we're continuing to live, we continue to experience, right? But over time, you will have tools that you can use to allow you to progress more in life. So I'm saying all of this to say, don't base your experience so much on what other people is going through. That's their experience. Mm-hmm. Okay? So just because 20 twin flames and they're having a hard time, that doesn't necessarily mean that when you get into union, you're going to have a very hard time.
Yeah.
Right? That's their experience. That maybe they have some type of life lessons that they need to learn, and that type of experience would bring about the lessons and stuff that they need to elevate their souls or whatnot, right? Mm-hmm. But maybe yours is not that extensive. So don't buy that karma.
Yeah.
And store that in your subconscious so that you can actually play that out in your relationship. Because oftentimes we do that in life. We see something And because we see it happening to 10 people, we automatically just accept it and say, oh, that's going to happen to me too. When that might not necessarily be the case.
Mhm.
Right.
That also ties into
strong. Yeah. Don't hold so
one's
strong.
own parents.
Yeah.
And what their relationship is like. And do you take that on subconsciously and never go through it and feel what they feel towards each other?
Yeah.
You know, so that you don't take on their relationship for your as the template for all of your other relationships.
Right. Yeah. You know, the movie Inception is one that a lot of people should really dig a little bit deeper into, because in that movie, a small little idea is implanted into the mind of the other gentleman. And they're not, when they plant that seed, they're not telling him exactly what to do. But what happens is that if it's small and simple enough for you to accept it in your subconscious, then what happens is that your imagination starts to take form on that idea, and then it starts to birth it. So many times, we really have to be careful, ourselves included, because we are very guarded when it comes to certain things, because we know how the subconscious works. And if we just let a little bit thing come in, if we're not aware of it, it will allow itself to manifest and just branch out in different ways. So we have to guard ourselves in certain things, because like if you want to experience union, not so much lying to yourself, but put things in your field, which means your eyes, your ears, whatever you say, things of that nature. Put things in your field that would help support the idea of what you want to create. Because if you put other things in your way, like say for example, actually this is even something that happened in my past relationship, because I was in a marriage for almost 10 years, almost going over to 11, before I got with Alicia. And during that marriage, a lot of times my ex-wife would watch a lot of divorce court. Her other friends were going through situations with their husbands or their boyfriends and talking about this and talking about that, to the point to where, to some level in both her and I, those seeds were planted and it manifested itself. So we have to watch those things and understand that our minds are very powerful. Our minds are very, very powerful. And if we can believe that just because somebody is out there saying that all these other twin flames are having difficulties with their relationships, we know quite a few twin flames and their relationships are pretty good.
I think that, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I also believe that a lot of people have this idea that, you know, the twin flame union will bring the salvation, or that once I will be with my twin, then I will be fine, then I will be happy, then I will be fulfilled and complete. And it's like, wait a minute, you're feeling triggered when you're not together. Wait until you have to face each other every single day.
I'm sorry. I mean, we're sitting here, we're like, yeah, that's some real shit.
You know, because now what? I mean, you're face to face. You have to look at yourself, literally.
Right.
You know, that's scary. And I mean, vulnerability is not just about feelings of love. It's uncomfortable feelings. It's painful. It's fear. You know, fear is still present. It's just that you no longer give it that much power. But even in union, like, there will still be, and all connections are different, and you're right on that, because some will expect the worst and others think that it's this perfect thing. You know,
I think the way that the way I experience our connection now is like, over the last probably 4 years, it's like living with a mirror that reflects back to you all day. And if you can imagine, if you're not in that space with the person you're connected to. Just try to get through 2 hours of the mirror sitting in front of you all day and you having to interact with that mirror all day.
Right, and see how that works out.
And see, right, because you'll find that what they're going to mirror back to you will be very similar.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And when we finally realized there were some things that we weren't in healing about, we realized that it was hard to have compassion for the other person because we struggled to have compassion for ourselves. So when we started to reverse that, when I really started to say to myself, am I hurt because it's something she did, or am I hurt because I've still been staying hurt? And I realized that I wasn't sitting with that hurt and actually accepting that hurt, and then understanding that the way I was thinking about it really didn't have anything to do with her, had a lot to do with my own hurt.
Right.
And I wasn't given that compassion here to give it to her. And it's a struggle to do that, because at first you don't know what that is. You think it's just the other person trying to trigger you all the time. But literally what it is it's your hurt coming back to knock on the door to say, are you home?
Right.
Because, you know, I want to spend some time.
Today?
Your hurt wants to spend time with you, but do you want to spend time with your hurt? Because that would be healing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to wrap this up. I need to go check on her. Thank you guys so much. The way that we've been doing the soul chat, because I always want to make sure that we're putting out healing to receive healing. And this is going to grow. I know I've been it's been a tricky last couple of weeks. Sherry health has deteriorated over the last 3 weeks. Hospice has been here every week. They're going to be coming more regularly because we got to get her to that table. Today she had fluids in, but we did have the news here to kind of really spread the word on finding a donor. We are going to the Cleveland Clinic. She is still staying with OSU as far as the deceased donor, but the living donor part of it is going to go to Cleveland Clinic, who's really good at this. So even though her organs are sustaining damage right now, that's why hospice is there, because we just don't know what that can do. And it's been tough because we get a lot of talks about, when she passes over, a lot of those kinds of conversations are happening. And it makes it a little difficult to be connected to everything that you're trying to do when you're going through that. And I've really had to search deep in a lot of different ways. Even realizing that I probably should really sit with losing my mother, because I could hear I know that's where that blame I was talking about earlier is coming from, right? Of what I'm not doing enough of. So as I'm healing that, I'm noticing that I need to continue to keep healing and working and keep on going and focusing in that space, because it does funnel in. I noticed there was a difference. I believe I was doing it so much, it did keep her here because my energy would be of healing walking around her. But if I'm focused on, I'm not focused on healing. So I've got to get back to this. So bring it, right? I'm only going to work about 30 hours, but bring it. I need to keep healing. As you can see, I still want to make sure that I stay very connected to all of you. And I want you to know how much I value that, and how much she values that, and how that really has healed our connection to each other. But we make sure that you guys get that back. We want your healing, your connection to yourself to expand, because that's what an ocean would do. It would connect. It would connect to other oceans and say, "Hey, your wave matters." Right.
I like that.
That's important, right? So we make sure that we still stay in this space. So look for us more. We're going to be here. She really wanted to do this today. She's been talking about it all week, but she's weaned herself sometimes off of the actual opioids and gone back to THC, but it's really not working that well. The pain is greater. So we appreciate all of you here. Stefania, this was brilliant. You were absolutely correct. And you came right on time, because you said, let's go. We got to tell people this is the number 1 block. I was like, let's go. She sent the message and I said, let's do this at 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock. And she said, 1 o'clock. Wait a minute. And then I sent you guys a message like, come on, let's go.
Thank you so much to all who have joined in the chat and also in the Zoom. It was a pleasure meeting you all and connecting with you. Thank you.
Where can they find you?
Thank you.
Well, I'm on the group, the Twin Flame Lee and Sherry group. I'm also on YouTube, and yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. I'll definitely follow you guys.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Where can they find Twin Flames Unite?
Yes.
We're kind of like everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
Instagram,
Instagram, Facebook.
Facebook, and YouTube. As you can see, Twin Flames Unite. It's on YouTube. We have a website, twinflameunite.com, twinflameunite.com. Yeah, and we do webinars once or twice a month to help with this ascension. If you guys would like to become a royal twin flame on the website, you can. I just wrote a book of inspirational poems. It's on the website. It's called A Moth is Also a Butterfly. Those of you who are going through your metamorphosis, it's really good. It's personal. I have conversations with my higher self in that book also. So, yes.
Awesome.
I have one question about higher self, just to get clarification. Is higher self a feeling or a thought?
I would say it's a little bit of both. Maybe it's like I would say it's like an intuition. It's like
But you feel it or you think
right. It depends on the situation. Most of the time it's a feeling.
Yeah, it's a feeling.
It's a really strong feeling. And then, with that feeling, our mind would try to make some type of picture. But it usually starts as like an intuitive, very strong feeling.
Yeah.
So you stay with the feeling, you're staying in higher self. If you go to the thought, you're not.
Right.
Just making sure. I wanted to make sure everybody clear, because I think a lot of people go, well, I'm with my higher self, and then they go into a whole thought pattern. I'm going,
well, no, because you see, thoughts are like clouds. Yeah.
The feeling.
No, it's like it comes in really, really strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Stefan, you did that earlier, right?
Right.
The feeling, right?
Yeah. Thoughts are like clouds. They come, and I think of thoughts like subway stations.
Yeah.
And depending on which one you ride, that'll kind of take you into whatever experience. Thoughts and the higher self communication is a little different. It's slightly different.
Yeah.
It's the self with no self.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, Alicia actually came up with an awesome scenario on higher self. And I'll say this real quickly because we know you got to go. Yeah. But higher self is really just our future us. Okay. Because when you think about, like, there's so many times like we've done things like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. And so like our future self knows that, okay, if we take this path, it's going to lead us this way to where we could actually be whole and things of that nature. So it really is a feeling. But in order to really tap into it, you can't be tied to the past, present, and future. You have to be tied into the now. Right. Because what happens is that those thoughts that are coming from your future self telling you to turn left so that you don't get into a car accident, you have to be in the moment to feel that feeling. Because it's not something that you even think about. It's something that you're kind of told to do. And then when you step into that, and if you follow that, it will lead you to where you want to be. So it is not a thought process, because it is more of an action. It is a real, we call it a real strong thought form.
Presence. It's a presence. Your
presence. Right.
And so that is the higher self. That is the one that has gone through all of this BS and understand that this is going to be the best path for you to go on, for you to reach ascension, because we have done it.
Absolutely.
We've done it. We've done it already. It's just a matter of living out this time.
Whatever this is.
Yeah.
Well, I love you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank
you for joining us. Everybody on YouTube, thank you for joining us. We do have a membership channel coming out where every other Wednesday, we're going to be doing more soul chats, but they're going to be deeper. We're even going to do, I think we're going to kind of walk it through like we do our root camp, where we'll actually take people through each question so they can see and understand what that actually is. And that's going to be a membership that will launch here at some point. It's coming. We've been talking about it and trying to work on it. And she says, we got to get it out there, because that is where you're really going to heal in connection to yourself. There are things that you're not really quite aware of that you're saying inside yourself that you really feed into. And those things are the things that you can heal from. So we're going to heal the reaction. That's what we're going to be focused on.
Love that.
Yes.
Healing the reaction will connect you to you. And the name of the channel will be Connect Me to Me. So it's coming. We love you guys and look for it. It's coming soon. And again, all of our information is below. Thank you. Subscribe to the channel if you want. If not, that's fine. There's plenty of people who just come and view, and trust us, we put this here so you could find connection. We love you all.
Love you all.
Thank
Bye.
you.